So most of what we are taught about ancient history is a complete cover-up. We are told humanity slowly crawled out of caves, invented farming, and built primitive empires. But the ancient world left behind a receipt that proves civilization didn't evolve. It was downloaded. When the great palaces at Nineveh were torched during the collapse of the Assyrian Empire, the fires inadvertently accomplished something incredible. They accidentally baked, hardened, and permanently preserved the single most dangerous library of the ancient world. Over 30,000 clay tablets buried under a mountain of ash, waiting for centuries. Most modern historians look at this archive as a collection of basic tax ledgers, diplomatic threats, and standard royal propaganda. But inside the private restricted bedroom of King Ashurbanipal, where ordinary citizens were killed just for stepping foot, archaeologists found an operational database that completely breaks the standard timeline of human history. This wasn't folklore meant to pacify the masses. This was a highly classified record of an interrupted human lineage. And it contains the exact names, coordinates, and anatomical descriptions of the entities who engineered civilization before the world reset. Among the most heavily guarded texts in King's private collection was a series known as the Bit Mezari. Literally translated, it means the house of confinement, or the house of ritual enclosure. These tablets were advanced energetic manuals utilized exclusively by the Asipu, the high-level royal practitioners whose sole job was to tune and shield the king's personal frequency from discordant outside manipulation. And right there, in the third tablet of the series, the text drops the veil. The Bible calls them the Nephilim, or the Watchers, the beings who came down and altered human history. But the Cuneiform tablets drop their actual names. The texts call them the Apkallu, the seven sages. If you've ever looked at the ancient art from Sumeria, Egypt, or even Mexico, you've seen them. They are the strange figures holding the mystery bags and pointing a pinecone-shaped tool at the heads of kings. Mainstream academics will look you dead in the eye and tell you these were just ritual water buckets. But seriously, who carries water in a flat, square handbag? If it was water, it would be in a jug, a vase, or maybe even a flask. But these texts reveal that these were no buckets. They were physical tuning tools. The elite practitioners used them to alter the literal resonance field of the ruler, keeping their frequency isolated and protected from the outside world. Now, the religious elite and the apologists love to claim that these pre-flood architects were demonic or evil giants who corrupted humanity. Of course they do. The control system always labels higher intelligence and human awakening as demonic, because they want you terrified of your own potential. They want you to believe that ignorance is holy, so you stay dependent on the gatekeepers. But check the parallel literal translation etched into clay thousands of years ago. Wana, who accomplishes the plans of heaven and earth. Wanduga, who is endowed with comprehensive understanding. The tablets list the seventh ancient master as being named Utuabzu, who the text explicitly states ascended straight into heaven. In the Bible, who is the seventh generation from Adam? Enoch, the man who bypassed death and walked directly into the sky. It is the exact same database. The Bit Mezari records reveal that these pre-flood architects manifested in three highly precise forms to interface with reality. First were the Paradu Apkallu, the fish-cloaked sages emerging from the Apsu, the deep reservoir of uncorrupted primordial intelligence beneath the planet's crust. Second were the winged bird-headed sages. They are depicted holding the Bandudu. the specific ritual vessel, and a mililu, the cone-like tool used to physically spray and tune the subtle resonance fields over the sovereign ruler. And finally, the anthropomorphic sages, fully human in form, stepping onto the timeline just as the initial physical baseline of the earth began to drastically shift. Ashurbanipal's library did not review the past through the lens of modern evolution. They didn't see history as a slow climb up from the primitive ignorance. They saw it as a massive degradation of frequency. According to chronological records like the Uruk list found within the library network, the moment the floodwaters swept over the earth, the lineage was forcefully altered. Before the flood, kings ruled in tandem with the Apkallu for tens of thousands of years. But immediately after the firewall of the deluge, the text abruptly dropped the title Apkallu. The advisors are suddenly demoted to Umanu, human scholars, beings who no longer created absolute knowledge, but could only desperately try to translate, mimic, and piece together the fragments left behind by the originals. We didn't evolve, we were throttled. Our lifespans plummeted, our perception was narrowed, and the original code of human consciousness was fragmented into survival mode. Ashurbanipal wasn't collecting fairy tales. He was running a deep time asset recovery operation. He knew that the control structures of his day were already lagging, detached from the original code of reality. He built his library to claw those original coordinates back from oblivion. The modern systems of control want you to believe that history began 5,000 years ago with primitive kings, wars, and scarcity. They want you trapped in a narrow, linear timeline of fear and anxiety because a mind with no memory of its true inheritance is a mind that is easily managed, conditioned, and policed. But the ancient tablets remind us of a much older truth. The structures of manipulation dominating our world today are not permanent fixtures of reality. They are the obsolete, decaying echoes of the post-flood decline. You do not need to fight a broken, dying system. You simply have to dissolve the illusions, rise above the artificial noise, and let the original, uncorrupted lineage of human consciousness flow back into the present. The documentation is real, the frequency is still active, and the firewall is finally coming down. And if you enjoyed watching this, want to explore any more reality co-creation or consciousness ascension, then just hit me up, nogoodbreathing.com.